dreams, sacrifice, and love. These serve as the cornerstones of the lives of Jenny Slatan and Sumit Singh. Known all around the world thanks to the popular show 90 Day Fiancé, the couple was never just another reality TV tale. They were two spirits that battled against all social norms, age, culture, and strange distances in order to be together. Following years of hardship and saving, Sumit Singh and his spouse, Jenny Slatan, decided to use their $1 million lifetime savings to construct a restaurant. With diligence and commitment, they were managing the business with success. Tragic events, however, occurred yesterday afternoon. The restaurant had a terrible fire as a result of an unforeseen incident. Jenny Slatan was trapped inside during the fire, and she suffered serious burns to almost 45% of her body. She is now battling for her life in the intensive care unit. Sumit Singh is now emotionally and psychologically broken. In addition to his fear of losing his cherished wife, their dream restaurant, which they had saved for years, has been reduced to ashes. Additionally, the family has lost a significant amount of money, roughly $1.5 million. Their ambition has fallen apart today. The restaurant has vanished on one side, while Jenny Slatan is fighting for her life with her charred body on the other. His cherished wife is fighting death on one side. On the other, the grave of their life's labor is marked by the ashes of their demolished eatery. We will share with you the tragic tale of Sumi Tangini tonight. A dream turned to ashes, a future obscured by clouds, and a love put to the proof by fire. Ambiguity. This goes beyond news. They live like this. You must first learn the tale of how this dream came to be in order to comprehend the gravity of this tragedy. Challenges were nothing new to Jenny Slatan and Sumit Singh. One of the most talked about relationships on reality TV was their love tale, which developed on 90 Day Fiancé. Due to their age gap, cultural differences, and rejection from their families, they were heavily criticized. But they stood together through it all. Not fame was their dream. It wasn't a luxury. It was easy to work together to create something enduring, something that would show the world that a future could be built on love, perseverance, and hard work. A restaurant emerged as the realization of that desire. By reducing spending, living simply, and putting aside whatever dollar they could, they saved assiduously. They were able to accumulate their life savings, which totaled an incredible $1 million throughout the years. Jenny once said to her friends, "This restaurant is more than just food. It's our love served on a plate." It seemed magical when the doors eventually opened. The restaurant served more than just food. It was an event. As customers entered, Jenny's kind smile and unwavering commitment welcomed them. The cuisine represented their journey by fusing American flavors with Indian customs, signifying their special relationship. Photographs of their trips, recollections of their performance, and unique touches that made patrons feel like members of their family were all displayed on the walls. The neighborhood reacted with excessive affection. The eatery quickly gained popularity in the neighborhood. The pair eventually experienced the sweet taste of success as reservations were completely booked and evaluations were excellent. Sumit and Jenny appeared to be able to breathe for the first time in years. Together they had created something lovely. However, fate had other ideas. All dreams start with a vision. However, it takes more than imagination to make that vision a reality. Jenny Slatan and Sumit Singh had a clear vision. Their legacy would be a restaurant. They were looking for more than just a company. They desired a space that embodied their strength, love, and story. It was difficult to find the ideal spot. They spent months seeing homes, small shops, expensive apartments, and abandoned holes. They all felt wrong. However, they eventually located it. A large corner home in a bustling area where people interacted through food and the streets never slept. It was dusty, dilapidated, and ancient. Jenny, however, recognized potential. Sumit came home. Ready to put their all into it, they signed the lease together. The difficult part started at that point. They were emotionally, physically, and financially exhausted by renovations. Friends told them, "You're risking too much." They ignored the fact that they had to rebuild the walls, redesign the kitchen, get permits, buy furnishings, and deal with mounting expenditures. They were all on board. While Sumit dealt with suppliers and contractors, Jenny frequently worked through the night reviewing designs and menus. They quarreled. Despite their tears, they continued. The restaurant was stunning when it was eventually shown. The kitchen glistened like a dream, with warm lighting, tasteful furniture, and artwork on the walls. However, the decor wasn't what made it unique. That was the backstory. They simply called it S&J's Kitchen, a moniker that boldly reflected both of their identities. The restaurant was full on the first night of operation. The excitement in the air was palpable. Not only were patrons interested in the cuisine, but about the couple that did it. Those who had watched their journey on television were now waiting in line to see the next phase of their lives. Their identities were represented in the menu. Both cultures were represented in the dishes. American cuisines and Indian spices. Customers enjoyed Sumit's delicious butter chicken and Jenny's favorite handmade apple pie. "This is it. We did it," Jenny muttered to Sumit that evening as she surveyed the room, and Sumit grinned back while firmly gripping her hand. In that, the outside world didn't matter at that moment. They were no longer merely reality stars. In every way possible they were partners, dreamers, and business owners. The eatery was bustling. Their desire came to life. Dreams are fragile. Success never arrives overnight, however, as life would soon tell them. For Sumit Singh and Jenny Slatten, the early days of the S&J's Kitchen were as much about survival as they were about passion, and the first few months taxed them in ways they never could have predicted. The restaurant was half empty on some nights, and doubts started to sneak in. Jenny, fatigued, would occasionally sit in the office late at night and whisper, "Did we make the right choice?" Suppliers wanted payments before deliveries. Staff had to be taught, menus had to be altered, and mistakes had to be fixed. And Sumit, though equally tired, would gently squeeze her hand and reply, "We did. We simply need to wait." And wait they did. Word slowly got out. Patrons complimented the cuisine. Within a year, S&J's Kitchen changed from a risky gamble to a true gem in the city. A love story served on a plate, the best fusion food in town, and the atmosphere, and most importantly, the couple themselves. TV fans who knew them from 90 Day Fiancé traveled from across states just to dine at their restaurant, taking selfies with Jenny and Sumit and proudly posting on social media, giving the restaurant free publicity money couldn't buy. Jenny frequently strolled through the dining room with a warm smile, asking customers how they were enjoying the food. People loved that personal touch. In the kitchen, Sumit worked tirelessly to ensure that every plate carried not just flavor but love. The financial strain started to ease. Debts were paid. The restaurant was turning into one of the neighborhood's most beloved eateries. Families celebrated birthdays there, couples went on dates, and tourists added it to their must-visit lists. But success isn't measured in profits. For them, it was measured in pride. They had built something no one thought they could, and every night as they locked the doors, they felt stronger, prouder, and more connected. The restaurant wasn't just a business. It was their child, their creation, and even though the future seemed bright, none of them benefited from the million-dollar risk. Jenny would occasionally say, "I can finally sleep at night knowing we built something real." The restaurant was thriving, tables were booked weeks in advance. Food critics praised their bold blend of flavors, and their names, once known only from reality television, were praised. Jenny Slatten and Sumit Singh said that the days before the tragedy were some of the happiest of their lives. But they knew that a storm was quietly building because just when everything was finally falling into place, life was getting ready to take it all away. Were now being spoken with respect in the culinary world. On the other hand, Sumit was always in the kitchen, focused, determined, and proud. He had settled into his role as head chef, creating dishes that blended his heritage with Jenny's butter chicken next to apple pie, spiced samosas beside. Jenny loved walking into the dining hall during lunch rush, hearing laughter, the kinking of glasses, and the hum of conversations. Jenny and Sumit frequently sat together after closing time, discussing the future. Jenny would say softly, "Maybe one day," as they remarked. Together they had created not just a restaurant, but a heartbeat in the community. On weekends, families lined up outside. Tourists came in after hearing the buzz online. Some fans even flew across the country just to meet them in person. They took pictures, asked for autographs, and always sent the same thing. They were joyful, proud, and finally starting to think that their hardships were over. But fate has a way of catching them off guard. Because while Jenny and Sumit were basking in the glory of their accomplishments, no one could have foreseen what was just around the corner. A storm, a fire, a nightmare that would turn everything they had built into ashes. On October 3rd, a day that started like any other, Sumit would smile and say, "One dream at a time, my love." It was supposed to be a perfect day, but fate doesn't give warnings. At 4:45 p.m., employees in the back kitchen noticed something strange, a faint smell of burning wires. First, they thought it was just a pan. The restaurant opened at noon, and the air smelled of spices and freshly baked bread. Customers filled the tables, and Jenny moved from table to table, her laughter resonating across the room. That had gotten too hot, but a few minutes later, smoke started to rise close to the storage area, and one of the servers yelled, "Fire! Burning!" Panic erupted. The alarms went off. Customers screamed. Chairs fell. Plates shattered on the floor as people rushed toward the exit. In the chaos, Sumit pushed his staff out first. He shouted again and again, "Get everyone outside! Quickly!" His mind was racing and his heart was thumping, but where was Jenny? Jenny had been assisting an elderly couple in the restaurant's far corner. She stayed behind in the confusion, trying to lead them to safety, but by the time she turned around, the fire had spread quickly, fiercely, and unstoppably. Thick smoke filled the dining hall, and flames danced along the walls, devouring everything they had built. Jenny coughed violently, her eyes burning from the smoke, and she attempted to move toward the exit, but the fire blocked her path. Outside, Sumit was scanning desperately, calling her name, "Jenny. Jenny." His voice cracked with fear. He could see the smoke thickening the fire. His blood ran cold. Firefighters had just arrived, sirens wailing, water hoses blasting, but soon it tried to run back in. Neighbors and staff held him back, screaming, "You'll die if you go in." Tears ran down his face as he struggled to break free. Jenny was trapped inside, her body pressed against a wall, trying to shield herself from the heat. But he couldn't find her. Then he heard her voice faintly trembling from inside the fire. When two firefighters finally arrived with oxygen masks, they discovered Jenny unconscious, her body burned, her breathing shallow, and they carried her out with all their strength, her skin scorched, her life hanging by a thread. Sumit collapsed to his knees upon seeing her. His wife, his partner, his love, unrecognizable, covered in burns, her body trembling with each fragile breath. On that day, their story changed forever. Time slowed down inside the burning restaurant. Behind them, S&J's kitchen collapsed into flames, reducing the million-dollar dream they had built to black and ruins. The community stood in shock, watching helplessly as firefighters battled the inferno. The restaurant was gone, and Jenny's life was hanging by the thinnest thread. Sumit climbed in beside her, holding her hand, whispering through tears, "Stay with me, Jenny. Please stay with me." The exit was only a few feet away, but flames had already sealed it shut. Her chest tightened, every breath felt like swallowing fire, her eyes stinging with tears, and she could hear people outside shouting, chairs scraping, plates breaking, and in the distance, Sumit's voice, broken and desperate, calling her name. Those minutes felt like hours. One moment she was helping customers, and the next thick black smoke wrapped around her like a suffocating blanket. Her body trembled, her strength ebbing away, and she clawed at the floor, trying to protect herself from the flames, but the fire was faster, licked at her clothes, crawling upward, and in seconds her skin was seared with pain. She screamed, a scream so raw that it reverberated throughout the entire restaurant. She thought of Sumit, of their love, of everything they had built, and she thought, "This can't be the end. Not like this." Her hands trembled, her lungs pleaded for air, her eyesight became blurry, and she said to herself, "Please, not now," as she crawled toward the dim glow of daybreak peeking through the smoke. "I can't leave him yet." And then darkness began to close in. At that exact moment, two firefighters burst through the smoke. Their flashlights scanned desperately until they found her collapsed, burned, barely conscious. "We've got one. We have her," one of them yelled. As they carried her out, Jenny caught one last glimpse of the restaurant, which was engulfed in flames. Her heart broke, not just for herself, but for the dream she and Sumit had poured everything into. Outside, she collapsed into Sumit's arms, and he sobbed uncontrollably, whispering, "Stay with me." Practice speed. They pulled her up, wrapped her in fire-resistant blankets, and protected her fragile body from the flames. Jenny's skin was blistered, her face was pale, but her chest continued to rise and fall faintly, painfully, but alive. "Jenny here." Jenny, who was hardly able to speak, said in a murmur that only he could hear, "Please don't leave me now." "Sorry. I tried." Her eyes closed, and paramedics hurried her into the ambulance. The fire continued to burn behind them, but Sumit's world was inside the ambulance, struggling to survive. Time was of the essence, and every second counted. Jenny Slatton was inside an ambulance while firefighters fought the fire outside. The paramedics worked frantically, calling out vital signs and numbers, oxygen masks strapped onto her face, for drips piercing her arm, pushing fluids, pain relief, adrenaline, and anything else to keep her alive until the hospital. Her life was hanging in the balance. Nearly 45% of her body was burned, her skin blistered, and her breathing was shallow. Sumit Singh sat frozen beside her, his hands gripping hers, his tears falling onto the white sheets already stained with soot and blood. Whispered repeatedly, "Jenny, stay with me. Remain with me." The ambulance roared through the streets, sirens piercing the city's silence, cars pulled aside, people stopped and stared as the flashing red lights sped past, and every bump and turn felt like a battle against time. "I can't lose you now," he said, recalling their first meeting, their fights to be together, their nights of laughter inside the restaurant, and now her fight for her life. The door swung open, and the doctors and nurses were already waiting. Jenny was hurried out on a stretcher, her face pale and still, her body covered in burns. Sumit attempted to follow, but a nurse stopped him, saying, "Sir, you can't go in. Please wait here." He shook his head angrily, pleading, "That's my wife. I must be with her, please." However, the doors closed, and he was left outdoors, where he fell upon a waiting room bench and buried his face in his hands, sobbing into the sterile white holes of. Jenny's heart fought, her lungs fought, her body trembled under the weight of the burns, and the lead doctor whispered to his team, "Severe burns 45%. The hospital was surrounded by strangers who watched in silence, some offering consolation, others too stunned to speak. Doctors worked non-stop inside the intensive care unit, with tubes, machines, and monitors all focused on one fragile body. "This is crucial." Sumit spent hours pacing the halls, praying and whispering to her, each minute seeming like a lifetime. Name into the quiet, praying she would hear him. At last, a gloomy-faced doctor emerged, and Sumit hurried up, his pulse racing, asking, "Please tell me, is she alive?" Sumit's knees failed and he fell to the ground, tears streaming down his face. His wife, the love of his life, was lying behind those intensive care unit doors, fighting the hardest. The doctor sighed, placing a hand on his shoulder. "She's alive, but barely. The next 48 hours are critical. We'll do everything we can, but it's up to her strength now." Battle of her life. Outside, the ashes of their restaurant still smoldered, reminders of a dream shattered in an instant. This was no longer just a fire. It was a war between life and death, and the battle had just begun. Nearly half of Jenny Slatton's body was burned, and Jude's had her lying motionless in the intensive care unit, with Jude's connecting her to machines that breathed for her, monitors beeping with each frail heartbeat, and doctors dressed in masks and gloves to keep her alive. The doctors whispered to each other in urgent tones. "Stabilize her pressure. We need more fluids. Prepare for emergency grafting, because if she doesn't respond, they know this is no ordinary patient. Skin grafts would be necessary. Infection risk was high. Every minute brought new complications. Meanwhile, outside the ICU doors, Sumit Singh sat motionless on a chair, staring at the floor. Hours passed, but his entire world was behind that glass window, and he replayed the moment in his mind. The smoke, the fire, Jenny's scream, the image of her burned body haunted him, and every time he closed his eyes, he saw it again. His hands trembled, and his eyes were red from unending tears. Friends tried to console him, and neighbors offered prayers. One day, a nurse came out to give him an update, saying softly, "She's in really serious condition." "She's strong," Sumit said, nodding, but his heart was broken. "The next several hours will determine whether her body can endure this. She must be. You can't abandon me now, Jenny." Jenny's body shook beneath the equipment in the intensive care unit. Memories flashed through her thoughts while she was unconscious. The hilarity at the restaurant, her first encounter with Sumit, and their wedding. Her spirit was struggling somewhere deep within. The physicians were at work assiduously throughout the night. Oxygen, pain relief, burn therapies, and organ function monitoring. There was a sense of urgency and resolve in the room. Sumit went back outside and put his forehead against the icy ICU window glass. Hours felt like years as he prayed, whispering, "Please God, take everything else but don't take her." Silence filled the sterile corridors, broken only by the steady beat of the machines that kept Jenny alive. Then, shortly before daybreak, a physician appeared once more. Despite his gloomy demeanor, there was a glimmer of hope in his words. "Through the night she survived. She's fighting, but it's still risky." With his hands covering his face, Sumit broke down in tears. A little flicker of light broke through the darkness for the first time since the fire. Sumit nodded, but his voice shook as he spoke. "I don't care how long it takes. This is just the beginning. The recovery, if she survives, will be long, painful, and uncertain. You must prepare yourself. I'll be here every step of the way. That's all I need as long as she's alive." Inside the intensive care unit, Jenny's chest rose and fell with the aid of machines. Her body was broken, but her spirit, despite being fragile, was still holding on. The battle had only just begun. For Sumit Singh, life had always been about resiliency. He had battled against customs, against pressure from family, and against the world's judgment simply to be with Jenny, but nothing had prepared him for this. Outside the intensive care unit, as the hours stretched into days, the weight of reality started to weigh down on him. His wife, his life, love, and business partner was struggling to survive inside those icy, sterile walls, and his dream, the restaurant they built together, was reduced to ashes and rubble along with his savings. The $1 million they had invested was gone, swallowed by the flames, and everything he had spent years building was torn away in a matter of hours. He stopped eating, he couldn't sleep, and his eyes were. Nurses told him to rest, but he refused, and he remained by the ICU doors, waiting, watching, and praying for a miracle. Sometimes he broke down completely, burying his face in his hands and repeatedly whispering Jenny's name like a prayer, and other times he would stare into space, lost, empty, and unable to understand how life had changed so cruelly. Friends came to visit, bringing food and consoling words, and some family members called, telling him to. When the doctors told him that even if Jenny survives, the road ahead will be long. Many surgeries, skin grafts, years of suffering. His breaking point came. Fans posted thousands of messages online wishing for Jenny's recovery, but nothing could ease the pain. Late one night, a close friend discovered him sitting on the hospital floor, his back against the wall, tears streaming silently down his face. When asked if he was okay, he whispered, "I feel like I'm dying with her." The words of treatment. "She may never fully recover. Why her? Why Jenny? She doesn't deserve this. Take me instead. Please take me instead." His love for her was unending, but so was his pain. For the first time, Sumit told himself that he was afraid. Afraid of losing her, afraid of living without her, afraid of facing a world where Jenny's smile no longer existed. He collapsed into the chair, shaking his head, sobbing uncontrollably. One thought kept him going despite his despair. If she's fighting, then I have to fight too. He knew that no matter how broken he was, his love for Jenny was the only thing that could withstand the fire that destroyed everything else. The fire had taken Jenny to the brink of death, but it also took something else. Everything that Sumit and Jenny had worked for, including their money, security, and dream, was gone. Experts estimated the loss at almost $1.5 million, including the initial investment, profits, equipment, brand value, and the future they had built with their bare hands. The restaurant, which had once been a place of warmth and laughter, was now nothing more than blackened ruins. The $1 million they had invested in every wall, chair, and plate had turned to ashes. And then there was the harsh reality of insurance. Yes, they had a policy, but like so many tragic stories, the fine print held a cruel twist. Sumit found it intolerable that every time he visited the ruins, he saw Jenny's smile welcoming customers, the laughter of families enjoying meals, the glow of success they once felt, and now all he saw was ash, smoke, and silence. When the insurance company pointed out clauses, limitations, and disputes, payments were delayed, questioned, and minimized. Months of paperwork stood between them, and any compensation. Sumant was drowning, and his love for Jenny gave him strength, but his bank accounts told a different story. The man who had once proudly stood as the co-owner of a thriving restaurant was now sitting in a hospital, where he was paying thousands of dollars every day for burn treatments, surgeries, and intensive care unit expenses. Here we lost more than just money, we lost our lives. Our dream died. As the world saw their tragedy as more than just a personal loss, it became public news, and Sumit knew deep down that even if Jenny survived, their future would never be the same. They would not be able to return to the restaurant, and they would never see their dream alive again. The news outlets started reporting the story. Reality stars face financial disaster after fire. Jenny Slatten battles for life. Sumit Singh faces 1.5 M loss. Love, money, and peace. He stood at the burn site again, looking at the ashes beneath his feet, and he whispered to himself and to Jenny, "We built this together and it's gone. But I'll build again for you, for us." He refused to give up, even in the face of financial ruin, because he believed that his love for Jenny was more valuable than money, and as long as she was alive, he would not give up. Tragic events have a way of upsetting not only families, but entire communities. Neighbors were the first to take action, and by the next morning, the front of the burned restaurant was covered in flowers, candles, and handwritten notes. Some people left cards that said, "Stay strong, Jenny." People couldn't believe it. The couple they had watched on 90 Day Fiancé, who turned love into a dream business, had now experienced such unimaginable loss. "We're with you." Others placed pictures of their more joyful times at the eatery on the ashes as symbols of love and memory. Friends hurried to the hospital to be with Sumit, bringing him food, clothing, and prayers. They sat with him in silence, sometimes crying with him, and other times holding his hand when words could not express their feelings. However, the support didn't end there. Fans all over the nation started posting on social media, with messages of love and hope pouring in on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Praying for Jenny and Sumit, seeing them fight for their love gave us hope, and now it's our turn. Turn to fight for them. Please God, let Jenny live. The hashtags #PrayerForJenny #StaySumit went viral. Thousands of strangers who had never met them expressed their thoughts and prayers, including 90 Day Fiancé cast members. Some posted videos expressing their devastation, while others called Sumit directly to offer assistance. The franchise family, which is usually split by drama, came together for the first time to support Jenny's survival. Local community members also came forward, and a fundraiser was set up to help cover. People gave whatever they could to Jenny's medical bills and the family's financial losses. $5, $50, and $500 all added up to demonstrate that love endured even when everything else had. Nurses in the hospital informed Sumit about the tremendous amount of support that was coming in online, and for the first time since the fire, a small smile came to his face as he muttered, "So many people are praying for her." For a couple who has experienced rejection, ridicule, and uncertainty, perhaps it will give her strength. Tragedy doesn't stay silent for long, And within hours of the fire, the story of Jenny Slatin and Sumit Singh had spread far beyond their city. What started as local news swiftly exploded into a worldwide media storm, filling newspapers and online portals with headlines. Because of their unconventional love story, they were no longer alone. The world was watching and praying, and sometimes prayers are the strongest medicine of all. Every media outlet, from small blogs to major TV networks, picked up the story. Restaurant fire, Jenny Slatin in intensive care unit with severe burns, Sumit Singh watching his dream turn to ashes. Talk shows played clips from their 90-day fiancé days, reminding the world of their love story. Now, those same clips were shown alongside pictures of fire trucks, burned debris, and hospital hallways. Journalists were encamped outside the hospital, with cameras ready to catch any glimpse of Sumit entering or leaving. The line between compassion and curiosity blurred, as it often does in the spotlight, and television networks invited fire experts to discuss the tragedy. While thousands of people prayed and showed love, others turned the tragedy into gossip, speculating about the cause of the fire, debating the couple's financial situation, and asking questions. Sumit, how Miss Jenny? Do you have any hope she'll survive? He walked past them silently, his eyes swollen from nights of crying. How quickly restaurants can catch fire. Burn specialists appeared on morning shows to explain Jenny's critical condition. Everyone seemed to have an opinion, which Sumit found intolerable because he had never wanted his private suffering to be made public. His heartbreak became headlines, and he watched the crowd of reporters waiting outside the hospital window one night. He whispered to a close friend, "They're treating this like a..." The tragedy of Jenny and Sumit had become global, and people who had never met them joined in prayer as the story spread around the world. Donations to the fundraiser soared, and fans from all over the world, including India, America, Canada, Australia, and the UK, sent messages of hope. However, this isn't a story. This is my life, and this is Jenny's life. Nevertheless, the media coverage brought one unexpected thing: awareness. We're now praying for them, fighting for them, and crying for them. But for Sumit, it all didn't matter until something happened. Jenny opened her eyes once more. Behind every tragedy, there's another battlefield: the reactions of family. Family had always been a complex topic for Jenny Slatin and Sumit Singh. Generational and cultural differences had clouded their relationship from the start, and now that Jenny was fighting for her life, those differences reappeared along with love, fear, and heartbreak. Jenny's family was devastated back in California after receiving the phone call that night. Her daughter broke down when she heard the words IQ and severe burns. Family members frantically booked flights to get to her bedside, but the distance and hospital restrictions made it difficult. Jenny's family posted prayers on social media, with one family member writing, "My mom is the strongest woman I know. Pray for her, please. She is battling to survive." They were broken and afraid, but bound together in optimism. The response was more nuanced in India. Sumit's parents had opposed his relationship with Jenny for years. They were concerned about the culture clash, the age gap, and the opinions of others. When he chose Jenny above tradition, some family members even abandoned him. However, all of their differences vanished into sorrow when they learned about the fire. Sumit's mother sobbed as she called her son over and over again, pleading for updates. Once aloof and uncooperative, his father was heard murmuring, "No." Some family members gave support, saying, "One deserves this. Not Jenny. Not my son." But others uttered harsh words in whispers. Perhaps things would have been simpler if he had made a different decision. Sumit was conflicted. On the one hand, he was thankful for the outpouring of prayers and love. On the other hand, he was devastated by the subliminal reminders that, despite the fact that the lady he loved was fighting for her life, some people still judged her. The physical separation was the worst part. The distance between Jenny's American and Sumit Indian families was thousands of miles. Separated, only able to communicate via video screens and phone calls. Everyone wants to lend a hand. There was really nothing anyone could do. Sumit, the bridge between two universes, stood in the center of it all, bearing the weight of all the suffering. Is she going to survive? Jenny's kid questioned him sadly one evening during a video conference, and he was unable to respond. His comments were overshadowed by his silence. However, there were also graceful moments. Formerly hostile family members now publicly prayed for their union. Jenny's life. In sorrow, hearts grew softer. Some even remarked, "She may not be from here, but she is part of our family now." Once dividing walls started to fall down. For the first time in years, love, terror, and the fervent hope that Jenny would live brought the American and Indian, East and West, Jenny and Sumit families together. However, the burden of familial expectations also resulted in additional strain. Would Jenny have the strength to continue if she survived? Should she not, how would? Does either family make it through the grief? Nobody dared to respond to these inquiries. Because an entire family bears the burden when one life is at stake, the narrative of Jenny and Sumit became more weighty as families on both sides prayed, wept, and waited. Happy occasions, weddings, anniversaries, and candlelight banquets are common occasions to commemorate love. However, fire is a test of true love. This tragedy turned into the most difficult test of Jenny and Sumit's marriage, religion, and relationship. It had never been an easy journey. They had been made fun of because they were different in age. Traditions, cultures, and judgmental families had ripped them apart. People they previously trusted had doubted them, laughed at them, and even left them. Nevertheless, they had remained steadfast. For them, love was more than simply a term. It was a decision they made each and every day. However, they had never encountered a fire like this before. Shared laughter and stolen kisses were no longer the hallmarks of love. It was about going to the hospital, praying in private, and always being afraid of losing one another. Sumit was not even allowed to freely touch Jenny. Machines, bandages, and hospital limitations kept them apart. When doctors eventually permitted short visits, Sumit would sit at her bedside, holding the only portion of her hand that wasn't bandaged, while he spent hours outside the ICU glass, staring at her still body and whispering, "I'm here, Jenny. Always. Don't give up." He would gently reminisce about their best times together. "Do you recall the day we started the restaurant? Do you recall your smile from that evening? Do you recall our pride? We'll grin like that once more. Swear." He thought she could hear him, even if she was unconscious. Sumit blamed himself a lot. He questioned whether he had moved more quickly. Could he have prevented the flames from spreading and saved her? Perhaps they wouldn't have risked everything if he had made a different investment. As if she could sense his remorse through the machinery, he apologized in a whisper into the quiet. However, he secretly felt Jenny would never hold him accountable. Forgiveness, not guilt, was the foundation of their love. Everything was taken away by this calamity. Comfort, renown, business, and money. What was left was the unadulterated nature of love. Sumit remained by her side because he couldn't imagine being anywhere else, not because he had to. The restaurant's ashes didn't matter to him. Neither the judgment nor the publicity mattered to him. Jenny's heartbeat was all that mattered to him. Faint, fragile, but present. One night he told a close friend, "We constructed a dining establishment. We went crazy. We can start over. There is only one Jenny, though. I would lose everything if I lost her." He therefore showered her with love every day. Doctors could treat her body with every silent prayer, every word said, and every tear shed next to her bed. Her breath may be supported by machines. The only thing that could give her the will to keep fighting, though, was love. The love that had endured years of hardship. The love between Jenny and Suma was put to the test in that hospital room. In flames. Her body was disfigured by the flames, yet what really mattered was not destroyed. True love endures catastrophe because it doesn't end in it. More than just a restaurant was destroyed in the fire. It ruined confidence. For Jenny and Sumit, the future is suddenly uncertain and full with unanswerable questions. Physicians are unambiguous. Jenny's survival remains uncertain. Even if she survives, it will be a long, difficult, and draining journey. Several operations will be necessary. Physical therapy, skin grafts, and months or even years of recovery. She will always carry the scars, both apparent and invisible. Even if her physically recovers, her spirit will continue to struggle daily. Unthinkable strength will be needed just to stand, walk, or even smile again. However, people closest to Jenny think she possesses that strength. She has already demonstrated it. Battling against insurmountable difficulties for love. She now has to battle for her life. But there is a price for survival. Every hour hospital expenses increase. Insurance is still locked in disagreements. The savings of $1 million are gone. Fundraisers are helpful. Fans unite as donations flood in. However, the reality is brutal. Takes more than money to rebuild from ashes. It requires perseverance, time, and willpower. Furthermore, Sumit is aware that his battle is not only for Jenny's well-being but also for their continued existence. Some couples are torn apart by tragedy. It has brought Jenny and Sumit closer together than before. Sumit frequently says to friends, "I'm not sure, but I know this. If Jenny is still alive, I will always be by her side." His love is his weapon, and his hope is his anchor. Who knows what the future holds? Maybe Jenny will recover gradually and they will find a new dream to build together. Maybe the financial strain will push them to the brink and force them to start over. Maybe the scars from this fire will never completely fade but instead serve as a reminder of their tenacity. But one thing is for sure. Their lives will never return. For Jenny and Sumit, tomorrow is uncertain, but tonight, as machines keep her alive and Sumit whispers prayers by her side, hope still flickers, faint but unbroken, because where there is love, there is always a chance. The restaurant is gone, the money is gone, certainty is gone, but love endures. Sometimes love is enough to get us through the darkest nights. Together they created a dream, a restaurant born out of sweat, sacrifice, and hope, fought for happiness when the world tried to tear them apart, and faced a fire that attempted to destroy everything they had. For Sumit Singh and Jenny Slatten, the world once began their love, but they were told it wouldn't last, that it wasn't real, and that it would collapse under the weight of difference and judgment. Their future is uncertain, their losses are unbearable, but their love, fragile yet unbroken, continues to fight, and perhaps, just possibly, that love will be the fire that saves them. They took their money, they broke Sumit's spirit, they scarred Jenny's body, and they broke Jenny's spirit, but they did not destroy their love. Tonight, Jenny lies in the intensive care unit, breathing with the help of machines, and Sumit sits by her side, holding her hand, refusing to let go. Destroy but the ones that sustain us. This is not just a tale of two reality stars. It is a tale of two people who sacrificed everything for love and are now fighting to keep that love alive. For those who are watching, remember to pray for Jenny and keep Sumit in your thoughts because, despite tragedy, hope can rise and love never dies. More updates. Sumit Singh and Jenny Slatten from 90 Day Fiancé are going through some of their most difficult periods yet. They have reportedly reached their lowest point financially, struggling to make ends meet while attempting to plan for their future. Despite these setbacks, Sumit is determined to turn things around, and he recently shared his ambitious plans for his cafe business, saying that he hopes to use it as a springboard for an automotive car line. A bold but unexpected move. Jenny hasn't remained silent in the face of criticism, clapping back fiercely when Kimberly called her and Sumit fake, while also discussing the personal difficulties of living with. The couple from 90 Day Fiancé, Sumit and Jenny, are currently dealing with some major money problems. The couple has finally worked out their marital issues and is now concentrating on fixing their financial issues. She was far from happy during that difficult adjustment, according to her parents. Together, the couple continues to balance family struggles, financial hardships, and public scrutiny while striving to build a stable future. I will explain everything. Sumit Singh and Jenny Slatten, who starred in 90 Day Fiancé, are currently dealing with some financial challenges. In addition, they would have to make some tough decisions because of their financial difficulties. It seems that the latter isn't ready to make such a big move while they are. Please tell me what I'm missing. Tell me what they showed. If you want to know some amazing facts about this debate, you have to keep reading. Real-life issues. After traveling to India to be with her husband, it was evident that the second woman would not work to support her family. Sumit seems to have lost his job as a chef at a restaurant where he previously worked. Jenny and Sana were still shocked when Sumit informed them that he was unemployed, and they would be completely screwed if Sumit didn't find a job, she warned the cameras. Seems to be dealing with additional difficulties at the moment. The first teaser for Fiancé's upcoming season 100 Day was released not long ago and showed Sumit and Jenny getting ready to move. The former said they were moving to his parents' house in an apparent attempt to save money, saying they decided to live with the family because they were having financial difficulties. The suggestion that Sumit and Jenny move in with his father then came, and Sumit accepted it without first talking to his wife. The second woman teased her daughter-in-law, whom she assumed was hoarding clothes, and questioned her motives, and then asked about Jenny's drinking history. Jenny is quite uncomfortable about the changing dynamics as a result of the couple's move, and she made it clear to the cameras that she didn't see this as a long-term plan and that she couldn't see herself living with Sumit's family. The expression on Slatten's face expressed exactly how she felt about this, but it seems that she will have to adjust to the current situation. Sumit Singh shares ambitious plans to use his cafe business as a springboard for his automotive car line. Good employment opportunities are eluding Sumit, presumably due to his lack of training as a chef, as he admitted that he couldn't even make $200. The celebrity from 90 Days of Love recently came clean about his intentions to use the cafe to promote his vehicle line. The launch of their family cafe has been difficult for Sumit and Jenny, but he has bigger plans than just running a cafe. He seems to be planning for the future with loftier ambitions. On the other hand, viewers are baffled by the TLC couple's wildly unrealistic and implausible business plans, with the main concern being that Sumit and Jenny couldn't seem to pull off their schemes in the real world. Do you think they're actually going to do it? What were the audience's reactions? Season 7 of The Other Way featured 90 Day Fiancé's Sumit Singh and Jenny Slatten discussing cars and naming them Jenny. The second one has never wavered in her willingness to support her spouse. In an attempt to boost business, Sumit has chosen a new location, but there is no water supply or drain for them, and the TLC star is extremely cramped. To stock up on company necessities, Sumit and Jenny headed off to the store. To keep costs down, they chose to purchase pre-owned machinery. The former's family gave them permission to operate their business, but he struggled to find the ideal location due to his limited funds. The TLC star's new venture failed to impress. Sumit Singh and Jenny Slatten's cafe is a very serious enterprise. If it's successful, they'll be able to get out of their financial jam. Sumit's companion was willing to give them anything they wanted. He escorted him and Jenny to his storage facility where all of his belongings were kept. It was too big for their cafe. The couple realized that Sumit was able to persuade his friend to sell him all of the equipment for a fair price. The original posta stated that they hoped the family cafe would be so successful in the first 3 months that they could begin manufacturing in the adjacent 13-square-foot corridor. However, Sumit seems to have a very good reason for starting this business. According to a recent Reddit comment, he intended to start his car line, Black Sheep Auto, out of the cafe. In his mind, the 90 Day finance star would have used the space to launch an automotive manufacturing plant staffed by designers, builders, and salespeople. Soon after, the first model's name was inspired by Jenny, which has 2 doors, can accommodate 5 people, and can be propelled by as little as 10 feet of human effort. According to the OP, the Jenny will have 4 sides, no windows, and a roof made of recycled plastic bags from the family cafe. The fans were confused and believed something was amiss because Suma's proposal didn't seem very realistic. One follower said, "This was actually funny." Another said, "Jenny and Sumit can do anything." Jenny savagely claps back at Kimberly as she calls her and Sumit fake. The original poster acknowledged that it was all in good fun, and Sumit hasn't mentioned it yet, so it's possible that the user is just making fun of him for his odd ambitions and lack of business knowledge. Seldom do I literally failed to engage the audience. They had many setbacks, but they survived and are now living their happily ever after. Their romance is still going strong, and they regularly share pictures of themselves with their fans. When Kimberly Rachel first revealed Jenny and Sumit's story, she shocked viewers by using the word fake. She also made it clear that she had no interest in meeting with them. Why does she feel that way? Does their aforementioned pair bother her in any way? Became well known, it was because of her relationship with TJ, an Indian native, and their tumultuous relationship ended in a beautiful wedding. Because of this, viewers of 90 Day Fiancé were reminded of the love story of Sumit and Jenny, who, like their characters, had to overcome many obstacles while remaining united. As a result, some viewers wanted to know if Kimberly had ever met Jenny and Sumit, and the first one said, "No, they don't interest me." The famous person said, "They're not real. They're fake people." And the plot involving the famous couple was fake. Kimberly explained that Jenny and Sumit's plot had fake events, and that their father had no say in the matter and believed they were just playing a big game for the cameras. Kim quickly withdrew in private once the cameras stopped rolling, adding that the 90 Day Fiancé couple was a fan favorite. "I have no respect for people like them," Kimberly said. As a parting gift, Kimberly stated, when she attacked Jenny and Sumit, her fans lost their composure. They believe Slatten and Singh to be the most genuine of all the hosts on the show. Even when Jenny and Sumit aren't portrayed on the show anymore, they remain together. When Kimberly's own breakup rumors were circulating, people didn't appreciate it when she called a couple phony. Despite being one of the most successful couples in the franchise, Sumit and Jenny are the targets of her attacks. Slatten and Sumit, however, were not scared to take on their troll, writing on social media, "We are taking it as some immature kids are just being bad." Since no 90 Day Fiancé fan is complete without Jenny Slatten's adoration, fans couldn't stand to hear anything bad about their favorite celebrity and eventually criticized Kimberly for the same. Sumit clarified his wish to steer clear of such attention going forward. But if he's trapped with it, and that's how someone wants it, ignore them while they're acting like brats, he added. Everyone knows the truth about who is real and who isn't. The two also thanked their fans for their steadfast support and loyal standing by their sides. Even TJ ended up endorsing Kimberly's harsh remarks, so this was unavoidable. He views Rishi and Sumit as losers, but the majority of viewers were obviously on Team Sumit after. The 90 Day Fiancé star Jenny Slatten has started talking about her experience living with Sumit Singh's parents, and the more she talked about it, the more she felt like a fish out of water. Although this wasn't a permanent situation, the celebrity made it clear that she wasn't happy about it. Jenny, on the other hand, has recently started to discuss the biggest challenge of moving in with Sumit's parents. The stars of 90 Day Fiancé have enjoyed the solitude that comes with never sharing a home in their nearly 7-year marriage, but current events are also changing their marital status. Jenny recently elaborated on how the couple was so uncomfortable, the hardest part of the transfer, and how unpleasant it was overall. We can see she has a lot to say because she isn't shy about talking about the dynamics. Give me a rundown of this. Remember what she said. The topic is heating up, so stay tuned for more details. Jenny, who stars in 90 Day Fiancé, isn't ashamed to admit that she wasn't happy about the relocation. They were in their room all the time, so this move actually brought them closer, she said, mocking the fact that they were glued to each other and never left their room. However, Sumit did admit that things were difficult, citing the fact that they can't act according to their whims and fancy now that they're married and have to fit in with the parents' way of life. The second person eventually came to terms with the fact that she isn't there. Easier, and the pain is just getting worse, she said. Jenny often complains to Sumit about having to adjust to things they haven't had to in the past few years. Sumit went on to say that the fact that his entire family will be living under one roof initially made him very happy and emotional. He put it this way. But his life had changed drastically since Jenny had arrived, and he quickly realized it. Jenny, who is used to sharing her home with others, expressed her happiness upon learning that Sumit's family had accepted her. This does not, however, imply that she is not now seeking solitude. Her desire for independence was articulated in order to access pop culture and Hollywood, according to a famous person. Freedom is somewhat restricted. Initially, Jenny and Sumit lived their lives on their own terms, and she disclosed that they were totally free to express themselves through their wardrobe choices. But now they are looking out. We're all together now, she added, looking out their room's window at a group of people. And conflicts have ended. Quit yelling,